Alright, welcome back. So since I just did a Mercury Troll Live video a couple days ago, I figured I should go ahead and do an actual build for Mercury, and as well as it's been about 8 months or so since I've last did the Mercury build video. Back then, Golden Bow was still in the game. I'm pretty sure it still had crit on it, but Golden Bow no longer in the game now. I don't even think Bloodforge was in the game back then, so I figured I should just go ahead and do an up-to-date build video. But things may change when Season 4 hits in the upcoming months. But let's just go ahead and get right into it. Now, before I get into the actual build, I just want to say a couple things for people that might be new to Smite or just new to Mercury. So the reason why you see certain builds for Mercury is a couple reasons. For one, Mercury's made you look. At the bottom of the description of this ability, it says, each hit may trigger an item effect for basic attacks and can crit. So this makes for a really great long-range poke. It's great for, clearing buff camps, minion waves, or whatever. But it can crit, and that's the biggest thing about this ability here, and this is why you'll see a lot of crit builds for Mercury, and that's pretty much the only way you want to build for Mercury is just crit. And also the way his entire kit works out, he can either just poke you down little by little with Made You Look, or for a lot when you start getting crit. You can crit people for like half their HPs. And also Mercury's just trying to get in, burst you with a few punches, and just get right back out. He's not really trying to sustain off of you with like basic attacks with lifesteal like Kali would. So with that being said, you're just looking for crits, so your basic attacks can hit really hard, and you'll see a bit of that later on once I have the entire build. And his hit progression, the third hit with this and crit, it hits very hard. And also, you don't really need any attack speed items. You can get away with one attack speed item without overcapping. As you can see here, you get up to 70% attack speed at max level from your 2. So there's no attack speed needed in his build. You're just looking for crit, power, and penetration. You can go a couple lifesteal items. The only lifesteal items that are really popular for Mercury are Bloodforge, because it provides you with a lot of power and a really nice passive for diving. Or you could go into Soul Eater, which that item is only really popular in Duel. The reason why it's popular for Duel and Mercury is because it offers a good amount of attack speed, lifesteal, but the passive, the way it works on it, you can also have additional movement speed from the passive on Soul Eater, which movement speed equals more power from Mercury's passive as well. And of course, with Soul Eater, you can get back a pretty nice chunk of life back once you actually proc the passive on it. But enough of that, let's go ahead and start building for Mercury. Now, Mercury's build doesn't change too much from game mode to game mode. The only game mode in which it changes quite a bit is the 1v1 ranked duel, which I do not cover that because that can be in its own video. And the other game mode would be Assault. You still go the same build for Assault, except you kind of buy items in a different order. Most people don't really start off with just boots as their very first item in Assault. They normally start with an actual item like maybe Yoan's Wrath, or just start with crit right away and then go into boots and then the rest of the build. But yeah, let's go ahead and start building for Mercury. Now, for the case if you're playing Mercury in Conquest, more than likely you are playing in the jungle role. In that case, be sure to pick up the jungle starter item called Bumba's Mask. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick this up here. Just kind of ignore this item slot for builds for other game mode. The build that I'm about to go over for ideally Conquest is just the same build for other game modes. So after you picked up your starter item, or no starter item at all for other game modes outside of Conquest, you just go straight into your boots, which would definitely be the War Tabby boots. Now with crit works best with both penetration and getting as much physical power as you can, so that way the crit is just overall a lot stronger, and you see that later on. There's no need to go into any other boots besides Warrior Tabby. Ninja Tabby, you're not really doing a whole lot of basic attacking. You don't really need that much mana. You just need as much power so you can start poking with your 1 and then have that much power later on for when you have crit, and you'll see the large crit numbers later on. So going into your very first crit item, more than likely it's going to go ahead and be the Wind Demon. It's not too expensive like it is for Deathbringer or Malice, but it's still a very strong item for Mercury. And here's why, in case those you who may not know. It all goes down to the passive. So whenever you crit, it increases your attack speed and movement speed by 20% for 5 seconds. Now that movement speed part is very important, like I talked about in the beginning of this video. If you go to his passive, if I can bring it up here. Yeah, if you go to his passive here, you can see he gains more power equal to his movement speed. So once you proc the passive on Wind Demon, you're going to get a nice boost of physical power on top of the crit chance, which is perfect for, you know, poking with your 1. And overall, it's just a very strong item for what it does for Mercury. So real quickly here, I just kind of want to demonstrate what Wind Demon does for you. Now on the bottom left, I have my physical power there. It's 106. Now, hopefully I can get a crit here with the Wind Demon, and you can see just how much physical power I gain just from the passive proccing on Wind Demon. Alright, we didn't crit the first time when we tried recording this, but let's see if we can try this again. Again, we have 106 physical power. Hopefully we can crit here with my 1, and you can see the amount of physical power you gain from the passive of Wind Demon. No crits. Let's see if we can get a crit on our basic attacks here. And there we go, we're at 125 power from 106 for the next few seconds there. So if you can kind of maintain that Wind Demon passive, that's just a free extra 20 or so physical power. And again, you're going to have higher crit chance, you know, the further along the build goes, and therefore you're going to have a higher chance of having that additional power. Just to kind of show you guys how much that Wind Demon actually does for you. But let's go ahead and continue on the build. Now after Wind Demon, we only have 20% crit strike chance, which is not the greatest. You still need to bump that up higher so you can do more damage and have a higher chance of critting and just having that Wind Demon passive. Now the best bet to pair up Wind Demon with is definitely the Deathbringer. Now if you're like a hunter or a guy that you're actually sticking around and auto attacking a lot, then Rage paired with Wind Demon is pretty popular, but again, that's mostly for hunters. With Mercury, you're trying to get in, throw a few punches and get back out. You're not really trying to stick around and sustain off of your target like you would a collie or a hunter. So for this, you're just going to go ahead and go into Deathbringer as your next crit item. This gives you a lot of power, another 20% crit strike chance, and a really nice passive of just strengthening your crit damage by a lot. Now again, the downside to this item is that it's pretty expensive, so hopefully you're not too far behind in your match, but as long as you're remaining even to the enemy jungler or the enemy gods, etc., then as soon as you get this item finished, you're going to notice a huge damage increase on your crits and just overall. So now that we have these 2 crit items that provide you in total 40% crit strike chance, and we have a lot of power, our crits are hitting really hard with Deathbringer, we're just missing a couple more items here. We're missing a little bit more power, and we're also missing penetration. So for the next item after Deathbringer, you have a few options here. It kind of depends on your situation or just personal preference. Now personally for me, there are 2 items that I can go into right after Deathbringer. For one, it can either be Time's Bane for the penetration, which you definitely want to have somewhere in your build, or I could go into the big old Bloodforge. It's a little pricey, but it does a lot, and it works pretty well for Mercury. Again, provides you with a lot of physical power, which enhances your basic attack damage, and also allowing for a lot larger crits. The lifesteal, it's a nice little bonus, so when you are going in for those fist fights and you're throwing in maybe from 1 to 4 punches, you're not really in the fight for too long, but the lifesteal is just a nice little bonus. And then of course you have a really nice passive which works well with Mercury and a lot of Mercury playstyles where you just kind of want to dive into phoenixes or towers or objectives. You just kind of want to go in and get the kill and get back out. So if you do have this item, you can be a little bit more aggressive if you want to. So if you can get that kill when the target is under a tower or phoenix, just like I said, this can allow you to have a nice little blood shield, so that way you can take a few of those tower shots or phoenix shots and get back out just safely, or you can just go with this blood shield and go for another kill. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go into penetration. I'm just going to go into Time's Bane. Again, you can either go into Bloodforge, then Time's Bane, or Time's Bane, then to Bloodforge. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead and go into Time's Bane and then Bloodforge. Now, this is just 5 items here. We still have our starter item. If you still have your starter item now, it's definitely time to sell that bad boy. You can sell your starter item whenever you feel like you do not need it. In the case of, this build and outside of Conquest where you don't have a starter item, then you have the item side just wide open for another item. So we're gonna go ahead and sell this. Now, what to pick up for your 6th item? It kind of depends on your personal preference, like what are you trying to do. If 40% crit strike chance is not proving enough crit strike chance for you, then you can go ahead and go into another crit item, which the best bet is probably just going to be Malice. Again, it offers you with a nice bit of physical power, a nice crit strike chance, and then the passive works pretty well with all the crit you already have, so that way you can have that extra little bit of damage. It has a damage over time effect whenever you crit, and that can actually kind of secure kills that way. Now, if you don't want to go into into a third crit item, or let's say you didn't go into Bloodforge, there are a few different items that can be pretty good for Mercury. Starting off in the attack speed section, you can go into something like Haste of Mentality, so that way you can kind of stick to your target and just crit them down, which that could be a lot of fun. Or maybe you need something like Winged Blade, so let's say the enemy team comp has a lot of slows and is giving you a lot of trouble trying to stick to targets or go anywhere, then this can definitely prove helpful in the case of your sprint is on cooldown, or you don't have it, or you don't want to waste it for a certain situation. Then you might look forward to something like Winged Blade. And again, it does have movement speed, so you will get a little bit of power from this. Let's see, I have 261 physical power. We can pick this up, and we got like 9 more points of physical power, so it's overall not too bad of a utility item. Or if you don't want to go into that, then maybe, just maybe, a Ritual Dagger for, again, the movement speed, the attack speed, the health, just like what Winged Blade offers, except this one gives you a little bit of cooldown reduction, and the passive can extend the duration of your relics, so you can have more time of sprint, so you can have a little bit more power for a little bit longer, just extending the time of your sprint relic. You can go into something like that. Or if you don't want to go into any of these attack speed items, you can go into more penetration. You can go into something like Brawler's Beatstick if the case calls for that, if you need to kind of shut down any healers or high health regeneration gods like Shock, Vamana, Hercules, those are just some of them. Or in the case if you need to split push towers and objectives in the Conquest map, then you can go into something like the Crusher. And for the last little item that you can go into under the penetration category is definitely the Stone Cutting Sword. It's a little expensive, just like, you know, most of the items in this build, but it offers you a ton of power, 50 flat, and then 10% movement speed, so that would give you another 9 or 10 or so physical power. So in total, you're looking at 60 physical power from one item. And then of course the passive, the way it works, you punch an enemy in the face, you basically steal their physical protection for yourself, and you only need 3 stacks to kind of reap the full benefit from it, which he can easily do with his insane attack speed with this too. And it's not too bad of an item overall for Mercury. Again, with Mercury, you're not trying to stick around too long and box with enemy targets, you're just trying to burst them and kill them down, but this works if you're fighting a little bit tankier of a target so they can take a few hits. So with this, you can just shred their protections, and you have Titan's Bane, and you have all this crits. It's just a lot of fun, and you can build this item if you really want to. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go back and end it with Malice. And again, for Relics, you might want to go into Sprint if you can manage to go into it for, you know, whatever game mode you might be playing. Maybe you're in Conquest and you're jungling. Maybe you really like Wrath for jungling, then that might be your very first Relic. And then you can go back and pick up Sprint when you hit level 12 for your secondary Relic. And a couple other relics that you could go into is definitely Purification. He is a very squishy god. He can be locked down and just dead in an instant, so this can help you just kind of cleanse yourself of any CC and future ones for the next 2 seconds. Or you can spice up your life like I like to do with Sunder. So you can just do this first, so that way you can reduce the enemy god's protections and attack speed, and then follow up with a bunch of punches. Or if they're getting away and just out of range, you can Sunder Snipe somebody and just finish them off with this. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and end it for the build video. I'm going to go back and punch Odinbot a few times. Again, Odinbot, he is level 1, probably has no items, but you're about to see some really nice numbers here. So we're going to hit pop R2, and you're going to see the One Punch Man in action with his very strong crits. And again, with the passive, don't forget this other passive meter here. It fills up as long as you're traveling. It does not fill up if you're constantly jumping. As you can see, it's not filling up, so be sure you're just moving. It also fills up if you're using your 3, and of course your ulti. As long as you're moving, it fills up. Once it fills up, your next basic attack right after is going to hit for a really large amount, just like here, like 1200 crit there. But that's going to wrap it up for the video. Hopefully it was helpful and provided you with ideas on what to build for your Mercury in case if you're new to Smite or the god himself. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.